The PGA Tour heads from Florida's east coast to the west for the final stop of the Florida Swing. All eyes are on the Copperhead Course this week at the Valspar Championship, and there was no player's hangover, with golfers back out finding their groove early in Tampa. One of those was PGA Tour winner Andrew Novak. We're here at the Valspar with Andrew Novak. Obviously saw you testing a new putter out there on the putting green. A slight change from the number 7 you've had for a while. Talk us through maybe the Damascus insert and how it's feeling.
Yeah, it's similar head shape, so it's not a huge change for me. Just changed up the visuals a little bit, different color, put a little different shaft color in there, just hopefully help my eyes a bit. It's coming off the face great. Repped it for one day here, so we'll see how it goes, but I am liking the early returns on it. Yeah.
Spoke with Harrison, slightly thicker top line than maybe what you have. Is there something you're looking for, or just
no? I think
that look good.
I think that's just my guess is that's kind of how it is with these new Damascus. It looked, when I first put it down, I did notice it, but after hitting a few putts, it doesn't change anything. For me, I'm not a big lines guy anyway. I've got the tracer lines. Harrison did it, so they're not blacked out, but they're basically filled in the same color, so it doesn't really stand out. I'm not like a huge alignment sort of guy, so for me that works. It matches up to what I've used very closely. So again, it's not, I'm not looking for a huge change or anything, just maybe something slightly different, a little different feel, and so far I'm like how it's coming off.
The insert obviously is touch softer or more harder than what you're used to?
Slight. I would say audibly is maybe where I was seeing most of the difference. I felt there was maybe slightly more feedback versus what I was using before. The feel was not much different to me off the face so far. So, I'll have to wrap it a little bit more to have like a concrete answer on that. But the first thing I did notice, slightly different sound. I felt maybe slightly more feedback on this one.
What were your first impressions when you saw the Damascus in the series type of there to what we've seen out there?
It's definitely beautiful. It's pretty dang. It's, got a different little swirl to it. Looks cool, but again, I'm, how does it perform? That's what I'm really looking for.
Each week on tour, new gear hits the practice putting greens. This week, we spotted some new Scotty Cameron Phantoms and chatted with tour rep Drew Page about the designs. This is our Phantom 12. This one features a single bend shaft, but right now, experimental prototype. We're having guys try it for the first time. Really cool putter, new to our line on tour. It's got a mallet, high MOI, over 5K MOI, outstanding forgiveness. It's got a deep CG in there too, so that CG gives us a little vertical gear effect on ball roll, so promotes topspin with that low and deep CG. And then also the ones with chain link, you get a little bit more of that ball roll that we're looking for, topspin, to complement the deeper CG on the mallet head. We're definitely seeing a new design, color scheme, and maybe material. Can you talk through what we have on the top there? Yeah, it's a multi-material. The darker silver that you see here is aluminum, and all the outer perimeter is stainless steel. So it's all ring weighted. You can see it here on the bottom. All this is stainless steel, so all ring weighted. So about 65% of that is the stainless steel weight-wise on the head, and then the other is the aluminum. We saw some feedback going through with JT last week at the players. Was he working with these ones, or are these just brand new this week? It was just, we've had them a couple of times in the last 4 weeks. Certain players have requested to test them or saw them when they came in the studio. So we kind of just had one-offs for those guys. This is the first time we saw JT in person where we had them. So I just wanted to get some feedback from him, show them. He had seen it in pictures, sent it to him, but he liked the idea, liked the feel of them, just waiting to get something in his specs and his neck configuration. Speaking about the neck, there looks like there's a few options that we have here with the single flow, the plumber's neck. Yeah, so this one has a knuckle neck on it for weighting purposes. Gonna give you that same Newport 2 blade-ish original look to it on a mallet head. So little toe flow, little toe hang on this one compared to the single bend, which is face balanced. And then we have an interesting grip on this one with the bright white Scotty grip that we've really not seen for a while. New grips on both of them, really. A little reimagined of the Baby T, which has been in black for quite some time. First time doing it in gray. and then the Pistolini in all white with a little gray in it as well. So pretty cool. Well, we hopefully see these out on tour pretty quickly. They look like a really interesting shape compared to previous line we've seen. So yeah, we're excited. A lot of good feedback from guys that have tested it so far. We've already had a couple in play over the last 3 weeks, so excited to see what else happens on tour with them. After last week's breakthrough victory for Cameron Young at the Players, we took a trip down to the Titleist Tour Truck to chat about behind-the-scenes tinkering Young had made leading into the championship. We're here on the Titleist Tour Truck out here at the Valspar Championship 1 week after Cam Young's second breakthrough victory, at the Players Championship, here with Nick Gare with Titleist Tour Rep, sort of discuss the changes that Cam's been going through over the last, let's say, almost year now, almost.
Yeah, that's probably fair to say.
Yeah, we had the major ball swap at the Wyndham, which kind of was his first breakthrough victory, and then a few changes leading up until last week. So let's maybe talk about the double dot that he started with, what he was seeing with 40 and the changes that went through there, and then how that's impacted the top end of the bag.
Yeah, I think, Alistair, it's a really cool story of the evolution of getting on tour and seeing what needs are. His Pro V1X prototype golf ball, the 40s team saw unique delivery and unique flight conditions and needed something that kind of helped him with that. So I think as you look at his golf bag, he's a high-speed player and needing help with control. You look at that golf bag and it's all full of control. And his golf bag has evolved kind of over the time that we've been with him on tour. And it seems like every iteration is just, he's gaining more control, and that golf bag kind of reflects that.
Yeah, so obviously the ball was for main control. That then impacted the top end of the bag. So a week before the Players, he made a swap with the driver. Let's talk about what he was seeing there and matching spin rates to what he previously had, but with better launch angle.
Yeah, I think as he works on his golf swing and seeing different flights with the driver, him and JJ worked at Bay Hill on making sure that when he wanted to hit draw, like we saw on 18, incredible shot, that it had enough spin on it, right? And it had enough underneath it. I think one of the underrated things out here that we often talk about within the truck is kind of spin is your friend. And that for him, making sure that that number stayed up enough so that there was control was kind of his priority. So you look at that swap, a little more loft in a GT3 head, so 11 degrees, obviously did down to D1 on the SureFit setting. Just gave him a little bit of spin, a little bit of control, a little bit of launch too to get it up in the air. All things that he felt like he was able to kind of rein in and feel like he had command of his golf ball.
That launch, we saw it from 9 with the GT2 up to 11, almost a bit. Yeah, 2 degrees of launch can make a big difference out here.
For sure.
Keeping those spin numbers, which was, the key with the ball swap.
Yeah, when we're fitting on the tee, I think there are pulleys, right? GT2, obviously, player to player, but can typically spin a little bit more. So loft coming down on that older GT2 for him, I think adding loft also changes how the player reacts to it. So him seeing a little bit of loft was probably beneficial to his golf swing. And again, a little bit of launch and a little bit of spin, tons of downrange control. So the pulleys on both of those things were, they worked.
We talk a lot about fitting golf clubs, but a lot of what Cam has been doing is a lot of swing changes over the off season, kind of like you said, getting that control.
Yeah.
When did he first sort of come to you guys and be like, hey, look, swings changed slightly, maybe it's time to rethink what we're doing?
I think JJ and Cam have a really consistent dialogue, which is really cool. They're constantly talking about what Cam wants to see and where that progression is. And I think that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on is with hopefully all of our players, we're communicating so that if there is a moving target, hey, I'm trying to do this with my golf swing, this is where we want to go at the end game, but also the progression in between. It's not always, hey, I want to get shallower, so let's go all the way there. There's a progression there. So JJ and Cam have a constant dialogue, and he's been working his butt off. Obviously, the trophies prove it, but it's always exciting to know that the player is getting where they want to go because we know that the results will reflect that shortly.
And then sort of finally with the fairway woods, it looks like we called the GT1 maybe a game improvement fairway wood, but considering it's played by a lot of players on tour, it probably isn't that. Let's talk about that sort of swap and what he was seeing with the fairway woods.
GT1 has been incredible since its debuted on tour. Cam playing GT1 3 Tour and a GT1 20 hybrid. I think we've noticed that the increased launch of GT1, both in the fairways and the hybrids, without necessarily an increase in spin, with the ability to shift forward aft weighting, has been really cool for some players that like that little bit shallower look, because it feels like it's going to go up in the air. It launches really high quickly, but it doesn't necessarily rise. And I just think it's been a preferred look out here that we really have kind of enjoyed having the option of, and saying, hey guys, I've got something that's maybe a little bit shallower, that's super easy to launch, but if I forward weight this, it's not gonna spin, so I get kind of the best of both. And again, going back to the players with attack angle, some of those players, when it's shallow and you start to affect face height, change how they impact and how their angle of attack kind of goes into the ball. And I think for us, that's an additional tool in our toolbox to say, hey, you react really well to this, I can edit performance from downrange how I want to, kind of the best of both worlds when it comes to my side and the fitting side of things.
All right, folks, we're in Aaron Dill's sort of the wedge laser, the wedge HQ. I don't know what we want to call it, but he obviously has his own spot on this Titleist Tour truck, unlike a few other folks around here. So we're here obviously 1 week, or the week after Cam Young's big breakthrough at the Players Championship.
Now he's got the crown jewel of the PGA Tour. Young is a Players Champion.
Obviously, Cam went through the ball swap, obviously in the middle of last year, broke through at Wyndham. How did that affect his sort of wedge play from there? Were there changes that needed to be made, or was the ball just sort of perfect for that kind of aspect of his game?
That's a great question. I think the golf ball for him, that change was huge, right? Because it affects everything. Now, in some cases, you're like, oh gosh, is that a good thing for the wedges? Is that a good thing for the irons? In a case like him where he's really high spin everywhere, it was a benefit. You know, he needed to manage that spin, and we've done things over the years to help him bring that spin down, whether it was, you know, going from like, you know, an X100 to a DGX7 to try and reduce some spin, create some stability. It was just the kind of the perfect storm. You know, he needed that golf ball to manage that spin and give him opportunity to control better.
When you're looking at those numbers during the wedge play, is that, did you first see like, okay, maybe this is where a ball might change things up? There's only so much we've done with the club, or was it sort of hand in hand?
Yeah, when he started testing the golf ball, I was very optimistic, because I was like, this is good, right? This is the sort of thing that he needs, sort of thing that he wants. And I know from the equipment side of it, I was like, this is a benefit to us as well, because his golf ball's coming in with a lot of spin. And when it touches down and it's overly spinning and it's coming back and he's expecting a 6-foot putt for birdie or whatever, he may have 10, 15 feet or so, and it's just a lot harder to make putts at that distance. So, you know, for him now, knowing that I can hit the golf ball the way I want to and know that it's going to react the way I want to, give myself a chance to make a couple more putts here and there is a huge plus.
You mentioned Cam is really good at sort of that flighted wedge shot.
Yeah.
When you see a player with such high spin, folks might seem surprised that they can flight it lower. Maybe talk about how the two things go together.
Yeah. So when we look at what we call a stronger ball flight or a lower ball flight, the players who are better at bringing the ball flight down, they typically have higher spins, right? Because they are taking the face and they're putting it stronger on the golf ball, and that creates that friction. Players on the other end of the spectrum who launch it really high, they struggle with spin, right? They don't have enough. Ball goes really high, they reduce the spin quite a bit. You have these erratic carry numbers where they're like, oh, this wedge should go 100, it's going 95. They swing harder, now it's going 93, and it's like, I don't know what to do. So for him, you know, he's really good at bringing that ball down, managing that carry number, and making the ball change, and then working with us on bottoms and specs that manage that spin, help him create trajectory windows. You know, that was, in my opinion, that was one of the biggest things that we've done in our time together, is just finding better ways to efficiently put clubs together that allows him to just go play.
He made a few swing changes in the off season. Did that impact his wedge setup at all? Or is it more just, making sure everything is correctly bright, is in contact?
Yeah, he's really not one to make a lot of changes with us. Usually when there's a big change, like we saw at Valhalla where he changed from the T to the K, it was like a cry for help, right? And he's never going to make that call. He's never going to be like, can you just give me something new? It's more like I might see him working on something with his dad, and his dad he'll call me in. Valhalla was one of those spots where I was standing in the shorter game area just watching from a distance. I felt like something wasn't quite right. And when his dad and I made eye contact, he was like, come here. He brought me in and he goes, okay, this is what's going on. What do you suggest? And Cam's just kind of looking at me, wondering where I'm going to go. And I said, if the simple play is just to create some height and forgiveness, it's a K-star. It's a no-brainer. Let's just try it, see what happens. And within just 3 or 4 hits, he was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is more of what I was hoping to feel. I'm not getting it with the gamer, but I feel like now I can swing the way I want, be a little faster, and it's coming out easier and landing and falling softer. That I saw his ears perk up. He's like, oh, interesting. This is what I've been looking for a while.
Walking around Innisbrook, we took a look at some of the setups taking on the Copperhead Course. UNC alum David Ford recently added a new Tar Heel themed Scotty Cameron to his bag. Here's a look at JT's bag. Along with Carl Phillips. Take a look at Gary Woodland's lead tape job on his driver. As well as his new center shafted Scotty Cameron. Finally, check out Matt Fitzpatrick's bag. He went back to his old Bettinardi blade for the players.
Didn't start the season putting well, and looking at the numbers, there wasn't really much of a difference in improvement. I think make rates with my blade was actually significantly better, but strokes gained in general was pretty equal. I think my make rates sort of between 5 to 15 feet were much better with the blade, and that kind of convinced me just to go back. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. I just kind of looked at the data, felt like I'd had long enough with the mallet, and happy to be back using what I know.
High-flying Pearson Coody added a new putter in play this week. While TaylorMade was yet to comment about the new wand, it looks similar to the custom job they made for Colin Morikawa last year in Detroit. As always, check out the WRX forums for all in-hand images of what we captured on site. And we'll see you next week in Houston.